not be addicted. 40 years ago, I was probably addicted to it.
Yeah, like me today. That's all I think about.
Well, yeah, back when I was your age, when hunting season was in, that's where I was at. I was hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
All right, hey hunting family, this is the Arrow Eagle, and welcome back to Tracks and Tackle. Today's episode, we've got a very special guest joining us. He's the patriarch of our family, the one who introduced us all to the wonders of hunting and fishing. It's my dad. We affectionately refer to him as Pap, as do many people that know him. And we're going to be delving into his wealth of wisdom, gaining some insights from his many years of outdoor experiences and reliving some of our favorite moments, successful hunts. As boys, we can maybe share a little bit of insight to remembering things differently than the way that we remember them. So, everybody, let's just welcome Pap to the show. Introduce yourself, Dad.
Hello, I'm Pap, or Mel, whichever you want to call me. Just don't call me late for supper.
Tell me a little bit about, just for people that, I mean, obviously I know your background and a lot of the family here, we all know one another, but for somebody that might be listening to this podcast, maybe give them a brief insight into how long you've been hunting, what's some of your favorite things about the outdoors are, and how you got us boys involved into it.
Well, I started hunting before I was probably really legally allowed to hunt. My daddy worked at Musselman's, and he had a fella out there that he was good friends with, a good guy, but he had no place to hunt. I was raised in a farm, so we always had probably 100 acres and some wooded area and corn. So the first day of hunting season, the gentleman would always come to our place to hunt, and I was a tag-along.
Mm-hmm.
So it was. I mean, you walk through a cornfield, I was probably officially known as a dog
Right.
on it to help him and run rabbits, but that's when I started to hunt. So I did. But when I got to the age that I could legally hunt and carry a gun, I had a neighbor that was a year older than me, and I hunted with him and his dad and his brother, because my brothers were always hunting with the guys they went to school with, and I wasn't big enough to tag along.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's the age difference between you and your next brother?
Well, my next brother is 10 years older than me, and the other brother's 13 years older than me.
So you had a 10-year difference between you and your brother, which is similar to me and...
I always said I was the unwanted one. My sister is 7 years older than me. My brother younger than me is 7 years younger than I am. So,
jeez, yeah, but you got to think, like, between your younger sister and your older brother, that's like a 14 year
span between my sister and my younger brother on it. So,
well,
but I had a good life.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate because my brother's 13 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
But
and your sister's 10 years older than you.
But he would take me along hunting. Mm-hmm. Once I was old enough to do it.
Once you were old enough to do it, yeah.
Well, tell me, that's an interesting story. So you started hunting probably doing small game.
Yeah, small game. I didn't do no deer hunting until I was 12.
Okay.
On that.
So you were out playing the dog, running rabbits and pheasants or whatever.
I was out. To me, I was hunting. I was out doing this and doing that. I was in the field and seeing rabbits and pheasants being shot and being involved in it.
Yeah, I think that's how you get the itch, right? For younger people.
Yeah.
We were talking on a show a couple of weeks ago about getting people interested in starting with small game is probably a wise way to do it, because there's activity. You don't have to sit still, but you're involving them. Well, we've had some incredible hunting moments together. Can you think of a story, maybe one of your favorite memories with us boys having success?
Oh, I can remember the first deer your older brother shot was a spike buck up in Fulton County. We were hunting, and your sister was with us hunting, and I was with her, and that's when he shot his first spike, shot his first deer. So he was. And after he shot it, I told him he had to sit with his sister. I was going to do a little serious hunting. I might as well sit with her too, because they seen more than what I did. I didn't see none on it, but he had deer come in to him, a doe that when he was with Miss, and said got within about 10 yards of him, and he told Miss, "Now you want to see that deer run?" And he went boo, and he said he seen nothing but tails. So,
so he ruined the hunt for her.
Well, couldn't shoot doe back then; it was just buck only.
Oh, okay.
And up there in the same territory, her mother used to hunt with us, and she was sitting in a section watching an open field, and it was the first morning, and a nice 8-point came out and walked across the field. She said it walked in 20 yards of me, and she said the gun just wouldn't work. You talk about a case of buck fever. She had it, she just couldn't squeeze the trigger.
The gun wouldn't work.
The gun wouldn't work.
It was buck fever.
And I picked her up to go get something to eat. She was madder than a hornet. This gun ain't no good. It won't work. The trigger won't pull. The trigger worked all right.
I've had guns that didn't shoot straight before.
Well, shooting straight is one thing, but not shooting at all is something different.
Bent barrel on the gun.
On it, but she just couldn't squeeze that trigger. She said she wasn't nervous, but she said, I just couldn't. That trigger just wasn't pulled. Didn't matter how hard I squeezed.
Well, listen, you got a ton of experience and just a wealth of wisdom. So if I can tap into that for a minute, what advice would you like to pass on to people that are listening, especially people who just started their hunting or fishing journey? Like, they might be young people just getting involved like you were, having a neighbor or somebody take them out, or they might be older, they're just getting into it. But what advice would you give to that newcomer?
Well, there's a difference between hunting and finding. And if you're got the attitude that when you walk in the woods that you're going to see a deer and shoot a deer every time you go out, you might as well stay at home and go to work, because you're not going to enjoy hunting on it. I used to get down in the dumps when I'd go out and wouldn't see deer. Well, back when I first started hunting, if you went out and didn't see deer, you were doing something wrong, because there was deer around then.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's hard to find a place to hunt where you can see 10, 15 deer a day like we used to.
Yeah, and locally, that's our experience, just because of the area being built up, right?
With the area being built up, people, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'll call them tree huggers or bunny huggers that don't believe in hunting. They want to look at the deer instead of seeing the deer shot. But on the other hand, they don't realize how much crop and how much damage the deer do to the people that are doing the farming and putting food on our table for us.
Yeah, they feed us.
They feed us. So we got to control the deer somehow, and I think it's much more enjoyable for the people to be able to go out and sit in the woods and watch the squirrels and the chipmunks and the birds and just look at the beauty of God's nature that He put out there for us to view. And if we're fortunate enough to see a deer and take it, great.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus, so it is. But that also helps control the deer, that the people don't need to have them come in the yard and eat their flowers and get mad at them. And, well, like the battlefield where they came in here and shot everything off. Now there's very few deer in there. But it was crowded, but there was ways to do that other than the ways it was done. That could have been beneficial to everyone. But I just enjoy going out in the woods, and I'm old and never did like to sit still. So I miss a lot of opportunities that the deer see me before I see them on it.
I'm built the same way.
but I enjoy looking at the leaves change in the fall. And watching chipmunks run back and forth and pick up a nut and run 20 yards away and disappear. And 10 minutes later, they're back looking for another. And I just enjoy that. I just enjoy God's beauty and looking at the clouds and stuff in the sky. I mean, we have a super creator that made all this beauty, and we just don't want to give Him credit for it.
Well, we take it for granted. Certainly, certainly take it for granted. And that's why we say stop and smell the roses. But like even right now, we're just sitting out here on your front porch, watching the birds come into the feeder and got a light breeze blowing. It's a beautiful day out. And why would you choose to be indoors versus being outside and enjoying God's creation?
And if I sit here all day, I'll see a deer or two.
You will from your front porch. Wise words indeed. Well, Pap, you've guided us and shaped us as boys, as hunters, and as men as we've grown, and we're eternally grateful for the lessons you've taught us. Well, let's get into a little bit of talking about your early influences and your beginnings. You did talk to us about getting started with, I guess, a gentleman that wanted to hunt the family farm. And then when you got older, you were old enough, you said you had a neighbor that you got to hunt with. And how important is that factor of having a hunting buddy? Somebody to, because we were just talking even before we started recording about going out, like going to the cabin alone versus going with someone else. There's certainly that it's safer to go out, with having somebody know where you're at, and you've taught us those things. But how important is it? Enhances the excitement and the fun factor when you have more people at camp, right?
It's more fun when you have more people at camp. When I got out of the service, I hunted locally here, which back then you could hunt pretty near any farm you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there wasn't so many sue-happy people, I'll put it that way,
Yeah.
that wanted to sue you if you twisted an ankle or something. And I understand the farmers not wanting people to hunt.
Yeah, we live in a world of crafty lawyers.
Due to the fact for the financial aspect of it. But we hunted with a group of anywhere from 6 to 14 driving deer.
Mm-hmm.
And you were on the move. And we shot a lot of deer. Our group always shot 4 or 5 bucks every year, which was pretty good for this area. But it's just like, I'm going to say, getting in a car and going for a ride.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get in the car by yourself, you got the radio to listen to. And while you're driving, you got to keep your eyes on the road. You can't see everything. But if you got someone in the car with you, I can remember my wife and me going down the road, and she'd say, "Did you see that?" And I'd say, "What?" "Well, there's 3 deer out here." And sometimes she'd say, "There's 3 deer out there. There's a nice buck." Well, sometimes if we weren't in a hurry, we'd turn around and come back, and you get to see them. Well, those 3 deer, if she wasn't with me, I would have never seen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things that if you have someone with you, hunting,
it enhances the experience altogether.
It enhances it. And hunting, a safety factor too. I mean, you go out and crawl up in a tree stand and you're not completely alert and you slip and fall down and hurt yourself. If you're out by yourself, you're pretty near SOL until someone realizes, hey, we ain't seen him for 2 or 3 days. Well, 2 or 3 days may be too late.
Yeah.
I used to get upset at my son sometimes when we were at the cabin. We always said where we were going. Sometimes they went there, and then sometimes they decided they wanted to go for a stroll. Well, when it was time to be back in for supper, getting dark and hunting was over, and they didn't show up, you started to wonder. And you could look out the back of the cabin and see where they were supposed to be, and you didn't see no flashlight coming. But then you look over to the right, what seemed to be 2.5 miles away, and you see a light coming towards the cabin, and you knew they went for a jaunt on their own. No one knew where they were at, so if they would have got hurt, you would never found them for a long time, even though you started to look. You had no idea to look. So it's always good to have someone with you and let them know where you go. I sort of quit hunting by myself 15 years ago for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Just so somebody knows where you're at.
Someone knows where I'm at, and they know that, hey, when it's dark, I should be back, and if ain't, they know about where to start looking for me.
So, that's probably something you've instilled into us, that's, hunting wisdom. It's just, general safety and understanding and things
Common
like
sense.
that. Right, which is lacking in now day and age that we're in right now. But what other family traditions related to hunting and the outdoors have you passed on to us, or has been passed on to you that you've passed on to the next generation, to like the grandkids and things?
Yeah. I think if you want success in hunting, and I'm not saying success is killing every year, but you got to spend time in the woods, not only during the season, but before season.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that just 2 weeks before the season starts, because then you're going to spook the deer and they'll know something's going on.
And a lot of
But
guys do that and
yeah,
wonder why they don't see any
yeah.
deer.
But you need to start in July
Mm-hmm.
to go out and look for signs. And yeah, the next day the deer comes through where you were walking, they're going to be on alert. So they are. But eventually that smell will drift away and they'll get back to their normal habits and on. I mean, I am more for looking for signs of doe this time of year,
Mm-hmm.
before season, their activities, than what I am where the big bucks are. Because the bucks are like boys in high school. They're all over the place. But during what the deer calls the rut season, they're all the same. They're all chasing the girls, and they're going to be where the girls are at.
Yeah.
They're not going to be over here at a soccer game if there ain't no girls there.
Right. And the good news is, we have, because you've instilled that, getting out early and spending your summer time, checking, we've been really engaged since probably early July, late June, trying to identify where the deer are, on our hill where we hunt. Good news is you got some doe that are coming right in past the tree stand where you like to sit, which isn't too far from where camp is. So you don't have a long walk to get there, and you got consistent doe movement running through there. So that's definitely good news for you.
That's what they tell me. I ain't seen it yet, but that's what they tell me.
Well, we'll have to break out some pictures here and get you the evidence on that. So, all right. Well, one of the things you talked about when you were talking about passing on traditions about going out and having a hunting partner and how it enhances hunting, we talked about not knowing where somebody is, but the technology's really changed from when you were a young boy to today. What are your thoughts on the changes in technology, and has that increased the experience? Is it better for the hunting industry? Is it worse?
Yeah. Well, I think the technology makes hunting a little more interesting if you're into that. I can't say I'm into the cameras in the woods on that, but it's just like any other technology. I mean, the cameras are good, but people can use those cameras that they see, get a picture of a buck coming through a certain area. They can move into that area and try to take a chance of getting that. And that isn't what the technology is there for. The technology is there for to put out there, okay, there's deer traveling through this area. It looks like a good spot to hunt, to set up and hunt it the way hunting is meant to be, not just to be, well, there's a big buck coming through this area. I see him. Well, he's at that tree stand. If I get out at this tree stand, that's the way he's coming. I got a chance of shooting and having big horns and bragging rights, and that ain't what hunting is about.
So how do, if you're comparing like when you first got started hunting, like the techniques of how you guys hunted, because I know you were talking about, driving and stuff. Look, the guns are pretty much same technology. Like that hasn't changed, but like the technique and how you guys hunted back then versus the technique that we use today, how would you compare those to one another?
Yeah, I think it's just our society that has changed. Back when I first started to hunt, you knew all your neighbors, so you did, and they knew you. I mean, in our area here, I can remember a fellow telling me he used to see us come through the woods, and back then, in order to get through that woods, you got to walk within 50 feet of his house. And he see these hunters coming through the woods, and he said the first time he seen them, he was a little concerned what was going on, till he got close enough that he seen who the hunters were. And when he seen that, he wasn't worried, because he knew them. And back then, it wasn't that the hunters were out just to say they shot a deer, because when you shot a deer, you shared the meat. It was a group thing. Everyone got along. I mean, you worked as a team to get meat for deer meat, to make deer balloon, or whatever you want to make out of your share of it. And you worked as a team. It wasn't that, well, I'm going to make this drive. I'm going to sneak ahead a little bit of the drive in case there's one out there running, or I'm going to drop back that he can drop back through. And I knew people that did that on drives. But they were, I'm going to call them glory hounds. They just wanted to say well, I shot this one or I shot that, and instead of working as a group. They weren't, and I
Don't
don't
be
think
a glory hound. That's the lesson we learned today.
I don't think our society today, as people, that we're willing to work together. It takes a special group to go out here and walk through the woods and try to stay in a straight line and try to push the deer out to the ones that are out the other end standing, knowing that you're going through all these briars and brush and tearing your clothes up and getting scratched up, and there's a good chance you might not even see a deer. But there's someone out there sitting on a rock, eating a sandwich and drinking a soda, just waiting for you to come through.
Yeah, I mean, it is all about teamwork, right?
Hey,
working as a team,
yeah,
and can we come together and
it's
function as one unit?
It's just like us. There's anywhere from 4 to 6 of us up there. But when we shoot a deer, the guy that shoots him very seldom has to bring him in alone.
That's right.
There's 3 or 4 guys there to help bring him in. That's, working together. The only guy that don't need to worry about gutting him and dragging him in is me. All I got to do is holler, boys.
And we're happy to do it.
And I can sit back. I can sit at that meat pole and wait for him to come to me.
Yeah, we're happy to do it for you too, man. I'm telling you. I'd really love to see you, harvest a deer this year.
Yeah.
And I'd be ecstatic to drag that deer in, gut it, quarter it, whatever we got to do to take care of it.
I'd like to do that too, but as I look back across my life, I've shot more than my share of deer. I heard a statistic some time ago that the average hunter only shoots 3 deer in his lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
there's a lot of people that try to hunt that they're like you said at the beginning, they're going out to find.
I apologize for you guys that didn't know deer that I shot your share of them, but so if I never shoot another deer, I've shot my share.
Yeah,
and I'm content on it.
Yeah, so we've shot our share of deer. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be like one of those guys that have gone out. And I think that's why a lot of people don't hunt, because they try or they go out. And I've got buddies that they've tried it. They've gone out and not been successful. And they don't see why should I sit out in this cold weather and do that for. So.
And I know people that when they were younger went out with their dad. And the first day they were out, within an hour or two, they shot a nice big buck, which is great. But then they think that's the way it is all the time.
I think it's super easy.
And when they go out and have to sit there all day and don't see none, they become discouraged and frustrated with it and give up hunting. They were just lucky. They did the finding the first time they hunted. Hunting, sitting out there and waiting.
Yeah.
On it.
It's being at the right place at the right time, which you've taught us. What other areas, like if you're thinking back about how you taught us kids to hunt when you were mentoring us, I remember, going for hunter safety course and that, you spending the time to take me through that and make sure that I grasp the concept of safety and everything that comes with getting involved with hunting and fishing. But what are some memories that you have of mentoring us when we were younger that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I don't think for you got into too much small game hunting. A
little bit, not too much though.
By the time you were old enough to hunt, the small game had sort of disappeared. The pheasants and stuff.
The population, the numbers were low.
They were the only pheasants they put out were what the game department put out. There weren't pheasants on the farm anymore. The fencers had been pushed out for farming, and I understand that, so I do. But the birds didn't have the place to hide. Modern technology and the farm equipment, when the pheasants nested in the field, a lot of them, when they mowed hay, got eliminated. Because the equipment nowadays go much faster, and they couldn't get away, so on that. But your older brother, we had a lot of good experiences hunting, and there ain't nothing better than hunting with a good hunting dog, and just watching the dog work.
Yeah.
And go across the field and cover it, or hear a beagle get on a rabbit, and listen to it being out there it seems like forever, but it's probably only about a quarter of a mile. And getting that rabbit and turning him and bringing him back to you. You know what I mean? So.
When you've hunted with dogs and you've seen them work like that, you have a good, fine appreciation for what those dogs can do.
What they can do. And it takes, not every dog can do it. There's special dogs, just the same as there are people in hunting. I mean, some people can go out and pretty near every year kill a deer. But they put their time in it. And it's the same way with those dogs. Whoever owns that dog put his time in with it. Not just to train him once, but to train him and keep him alert every year.
That's the investment, and and that's why I brought up mentoring, because you've invested time into a next generation.
But even, I'm going to tramp on your toes now. When you were younger, you didn't have the ability or the desire to stay where we said, stay here till we come back for you. You'd always get up and wander around. And I can remember one year, I'd already shot my buck, so I was with you.
Now we're going to start telling stories.
We're going to tell a story here. Walking, and we were walking an old logging road, and you decided that your bandana wasn't on your head quite right. So you leaned your gun against the tree, took your hat off, was tying your bandana, and I told you, here comes a big buck, here comes a big buck. Well, you were too busy and more interested in tying your bandana than even picking your gun up and look at that buck. And that was probably one of the biggest bucks that I've seen in that territory. And you didn't even get a shot at him.
It wasn't. It was a big deer, and it's not that I didn't want to pick my gun up. There's always two sides to a story. And I was fixing my bandana, and the gun was leaning against a tree. But when you're in the tree stand and those deer come up on you, they don't linger. And so this guy, he was a big deer, and I don't know, I couldn't have been more than 13 years old, probably 12, 13.
13, 14, and that you were just getting started.
I couldn't. My gun was not in reach. And till I moved to react, that buck was crossed and down through the woodland. So those are the stories, though. I mean, because those, even though that was not a successful moment, and it was a man, I want to go home and kick the dog type of a deal.
I wanted to kick the boy that day.
We still are talking about it, because it's a memory.
It's a memory. I mean, and that would probably have been the biggest deer you'd ever shot.
Probably. He was a dandy, is what they like to say. Well, from a outdoorsman's perspective, what are some, like, one or two life lessons or values that one can gain from appreciating what God's created?
Well, I think just being able to take time, like you said, to smell the roses. Sit and look at what is out there. Be thankful for it. Be thankful for the people that allow you to hunt. Be appreciative of what they have. That if a farmer is willing to let you go on his land to hunt and you got to cross a fence or something, do it with common sense. Don't take the wires and try to stretch them apart.
Respect the properties that you hunt.
Respect what the other man has on that. And hey, if you get something, take some of it back and offer it to him, the meat and stuff. Let him know that, hey, we appreciate what you left us do. Instead of, well, I killed this big buck, I'm going to eat it all myself.
Yeah.
On it. I mean, he fed that buck all year long, so it did get nice and fat and plump. But at my age, I enjoy the camp social life. Listening to stories about, listen, snuck in behind me. I didn't see him until he was right under the tree. And when I went to get the bow, he was gone. I mean,
hunting camp's the best time of year.
I mean, the stories that you get there and the other stories that are told in camp, I mean, not really stories, but you get there. I can remember when the boys were younger, we always played hearts in camp because you didn't have the modern technology now that you could have TV and that sort of stuff. So
we played cards, yeah.
We played cards and always playing cards. Whoever lost, that was the one that would get the buck in the morning. Well, for years, it worked out. But it's just a myth. It ain't nothing.
Yeah, you don't want to use up all your luck playing cards, because then you won't have any luck in the field.
Luck in the field. Another, I can know some people that would take one shell out of the box the day before hunting season. We used to come in on Monday, so all day Sunday they had a shell, rubbing it in their hand or in their pocket, rubbing it. That was their lucky bullet. That was the one that went in the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first bullet that came out of the gun. So that was a myth that the lucky bullet was needed to go hunting.
Well, it's only a myth if it's not true, I guess, you know.
Sometimes it was true and sometimes it wasn't so on it. So, I mean, but they're the stories you hear at camp. And we've always been competitive. Didn't matter whether we were playing baseball, football, cards, or whatever. But some of the games that we get into camp, playing cards for fun, there's a competitiveness there. Or throwing darts. I mean, it becomes competitive, not bitterness, but competitiveness between you.
We want to win.
You want to win. And I think we have that attitude a little bit when we go out hunting. We want to win. It's us and the deer.
Yeah.
We don't get bitter if we don't. But when we put our boots and clothes on that morning to go out, we're going out against the deer, and we want to win this battle. We want to come in with the deer.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do that, sometimes you got to sit in that tree when you're cold and say, I know that stove burning down that cabin. It's a lot warmer there on it. But you got to know what you can take and what you can't.
And we all have different limits.
Yeah. How much you want to sacrifice. And I think to be a successful hunter, you need to sacrifice sometimes to be successful.
Yeah.
And again, you might crawl out of the cabin and walk out and crawl up in your stand, and 10 minutes later have your buck shot. And you might crawl in that stand for 10 days and not see a buck. So it's all...
Well, I think of the guy that, walks 50 yards off the road where he parked his truck versus the guy that, walks 2 miles back into the mountain. And certainly the guy that's going to put the more sacrifice in is going to have a better opportunity to experience at least seeing deer. Well, let me wrap up here by asking you, we talk a lot about the next generation. We talk a lot about legacy, and we're part of your legacy already. But what is the thing that you would want to see the next generation of hunters experience? There's people that are getting involved now, and even us, the next generation that you see us coming up. But what is the thing that you would like to see as far as your hopes for outdoor traditions and a legacy that you're leaving behind?
Yeah. I hope that the next generation coming up looks at hunting as a privilege. It's not something that's guaranteed, and not take it for, this is my right. It's sort of like driving a car. Driving a car is a privilege. You got to go through certain things before you're allowed to drive a car. And then if you drive that car responsibly and obey the laws, you can continue to drive. And it's the same way with hunting. I hope the next generation coming on respects that rules and regulations. And I ain't going to sit here and say that some of these rules and regulations that I'm agree with 100%. It's the same way with everything else. I mean, I think most hunters are responsible, safety-minded that way, and I'd like to see that go on. I mean, right now our country's fighting over banning guns. Well, the gun ain't never killed nobody. It's the idiot that carries it.
Yeah.
On it. And our people that are supposed to be, quote, the smartest in the world, don't have enough common sense to lay that. I can have a gun laying here on this table all day long, and it ain't going to kill nobody until some idiot comes up and picks it up.
All the more reason why we need mentors.
So, I mean, this is what I'm hope that the next generation coming on. And I hope the parents of the next generation has enough common sense to teach your kids about guns and gun safety.
I know, like even when we were young, when we were playing cowboys and Indians or whatever it was and stuff, you were always telling us, you don't point a gun at another person.
Right.
And and you taught us that at a young age. You don't point guns at people, even when we were pretending and had a toy or something like that.
Even the war cap guns.
Right. So, yeah, I totally understand that. And this is why we need mentors and parents to be involved. And, there's hope for another generation. We just need to invest in it, just like you were talking about investing into the bird dog owner, investing into his dog. We got to put a little bit of time and energy into what this next generation coming up here, teach them the right way versus the wrong way to do things.
Not only put time in with them for the hunting aspect, but put time in with them for the family aspect. I mean, I think the family is pretty near disintegrated.
Well, it's certainly under attack. And, that's the thing that I was, what I'll say a lot of times is, we address the people that listen to this podcast as our hunting family, because family is so important. And it's just like you can go up, go to a barbecue and meet somebody you never met before, and you can talk to them about, like, we relate to one another if they like to fish, or if they like to hunt whitetails, or if they're a bow hunter, or whatever it might be. If you find that common interest, you can sit down and talk to a stranger for a couple hours on end and stay pretty much occupied. Like, we have a connection. There's something that connects people that we relate to one another that way, and it's that sort of connection that families have. Because you know one another and you relate to one another, right?
Yep. You got the same interest, you can get involved, whether it's hunting, whether it's football, baseball.
Right.
On it. If you got an interest in it, you can communicate.
Yeah, it's a common interest. Well, do you got any closing remarks, anything that you would like to, reflecting on insights or moments of personal growth, or anything that you want to share with the people that are going to listen to this?
Probably anything that I look back across my life, and I'm just thankful for the opportunities I had, what the good Lord has blessed me with, and for the family that I can pass on and maybe set an example that they're willing to follow and keep hunting going. But just thank the good Lord for all the blessings He gave me.
Well, you definitely taught us a lot. We have a ton of respect for you, and I know I've been putting on my calendar to come out and actually sit down with you and get you on recording, because we have talks. We talk about this stuff all the time when we're together, but to get you on microphone and capture some of this conversation has been really a pleasure. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me today. That wraps up another thrilling episode of Tracks and Tackle, a podcast brought to you by Mentzer Outdoors. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of hunting, fishing, and the great outdoors as much as we did. And if you're as passionate about these adventures as we are, be sure to connect with us on our social media pages. You can find us on YouTube and Rumble at Mentzer Outdoors, Instagram at Mentzer Outdoors, and you can also find us on Instagram at Tracks and Tackle. If you have any questions, stories, or topics you'd like us to cover in our mailbag segment on future shows, don't hesitate to drop us an email at mentzeroutdoors@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you and share your experiences with our fantastic community. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Until next time, stay true to your passion, keep exploring, and remember, every adventure is a chance to create memories that will last a lifetime.